This episode will cover communication and navigation systems. What is the actuating element component of an autopilot system? It is the servo. Name the basic components of a communication system. They are the microphone, transmitter, transmitting antenna, receiving antenna, receiver, and headset or loudspeaker. What is the most common communication system in use today? It is VHF systems, very high frequency systems. Which radio system is used for long-range communication? It is the high-frequency system. What is a transceiver? It is a self-contained transmitter and receiver which share the same power supply, antenna, and tuning device. What type of conductor is used for transmitting information between antennas and receivers/transmitters? Coaxial cable. Describe a BNC type connector. It is a connector used with coaxial cables that take 1/4 turn to fully seat. What are the components of a typical VOR system? A receiver, visual indicator, dipole antenna, and power supply. What are the basic components of an autopilot system? The gyros, servos, and amplifier. What are the sensing elements of an autopilot system? The directional gyro, turn and bank gyro, attitude gyro, and altitude control are all the sensing elements. These units sense aircraft pitch, roll, and yaw to automatically generate signals to keep these movements under control. What are the output elements of an autopilot system? The output elements of an autopilot system are the servos, which actuate the control surface. What are 3 types of servos used in autopilot systems? Hydraulic, pneumatic, and electric. What is the purpose of a bonding wire on a radio shock mount? To provide a low impedance ground return and minimize radio interference from static electricity. What is the frequency of an emergency locator transmitter, ELT? It is 121.5, 243.0, and 406.0 megahertz. How can you determine when the batteries of an ELT should be replaced? The useful life of the batteries is determined by the battery manufacturer, and the battery replacement date must be marked on the outside of the transmitter. Time is computed from the date of manufacture of the battery. What sat-nav do all aircraft have? GPS. Describe the proper method of routing coaxial cables from the antenna to the receiver. When installing coaxial cables, secure them firmly along their entire length at intervals of approximately 2 feet. To assure optimum operation, coaxial cables should not be routed or tied to other wire bundles and be as short as possible. When bending coaxial cable, be sure that the bend is at least 10 times the size of the cable diameter. Where's the preferred location for mounting a VOR antenna on the small aircraft? The VOR antenna is V-shaped. The preferred location is on top of the forward part of the cabin, with the apex of the V towards the front. An acceptable alternate location is on top of the vertical stab. Where should DME antennas be located? They should be mounted on the lower surface of the aircraft in a position that will not be blanketed by the wings when the aircraft is banked. Why are doublers required under aircraft skin when the antenna is mounted on the aircraft skin? To prevent cracking in the skin. What are marker beacons? It is part of the ILS system and is used to indicate the aircraft position on the approach to the runway. What is the indication of the middle marker beacon? It is an amber light and an audible tone. What is an ADF? An automatic direction finder. What does DME stand for? Distance measuring equipment. What two parts make up the ILS system? The localizer and the glide slope. Explain how to determine the pressure altitude to an airfield and how to set it in an altimeter. You can listen to the ATC or tune in the Automatic Terminal Information Service, and they will announce the barometric pressure altitude. You will then dial in that setting on the altimeter in the Colesman window. Also, you can dial in the known field elevation and the altimeter will reflect the barometric pressure. When can you test an ELT? First 5 minutes of every hour. What is the purpose of the VOR? Provides azimuth information for high and low altitude routes and airport approaches. How often does the ATC transponder require certification? Every 24 calendar months. Why are two antennas or a single multi-element antenna usually required for an ILS system? One is for the localizer and one is for the glide slope receivers. What drives a gyroscopic instrument? Vacuum or pressure. What is an electric to electric measuring device? A synchro type device. Ultraviolet and radio are what kind of waves? Electromagnetic radiation. What is ACARS? ACARS. It stands for Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System. It is a digital data link system that allows aircraft to communicate with ground stations. What is TCAS? TCAS. Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System. What component transmits or receives for a radio? The antenna. What are two locations where you cannot operate radar? Facing people and facing buildings. What system do airliners use to establish two-way communication with regional centers? ACARS, Aircraft Communication Addressing and Reporting System. What kind of altimeter is used for instrument approach and low-level flight? Radar altimeter.